To the cloud. Okay, awesome, Gabe. It's me and you, brother. Going through, my goodness. Let's share the screen and we'll pick the lesson. Open with a prayer, fully convinced. Study guide, share. So, yeah, last week was good. Um, we tackled Revelation and apologetics. The study is called Fully Convinced, and we reviewed Romans 4 about Abraham being the father of the faithful. For any dispensationalists or those considering or influenced by dispensationalism, that's kind of the foil of the whole dispensational method. That here's the father of the Jews, Abraham, the father of the faithful, and he's in Hebrews 11. And Paul holds him up in Romans 4 as the archetype of being a Christian, right? So that was Revelation Apologetics. So we're going to do evolution, evil, and false faith, lesson 13. I'm going to switch the share and then we'll pray as we go through the study. So there it is. Okay. Are you seeing you seeing the
I
category?
am.
Okay,
Yep.
let's pray. Lord, thank you for bringing my brother Gabe and I together in this humble little endeavor to think your thoughts after you. Uh, you can accomplish everything you need to without us. We're not needed, we're inconsequential. But yet you ordain your gracious means to accomplish your gracious ends. And if Gabe and I are part of that plan to exalt your holiness, please use us to the fullest extent and make us grateful in the process. Help us equip our minds to be sharp so that we can sharpen those that are coming after us, the younger, that they could learn that there's nothing higher than you speaking when it comes to authority. And we want to point them to you. We're not going to look for the sun with a flashlight. We're going to point to the sun and begin there. So we ask this all in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So, lesson, uh, it's kind of a interim, lesson, talks about evolution and evil. I can't wait for next week. And I'm going to really be razor sharp ready for that because sola scriptura to me is everything in this study. But when
But it's okay because it gives me time to go through the lectures from Greg on
yeah,
Sola Scriptura.
oh yeah, they're so good. I,
So
Greg,
I'm almost happy that we're doing it, that it doesn't fall today on that.
yeah, Greg has 1,500 scholarly technical lectures available online, and I've listened to over 1,000 of those. I've participated in some of them as a student in real time when they happen. And the lecture on Sola Scriptura being a Protestant concoction, I would have to say is probably the best thing I've ever heard. Um, Maybe his debates with Stein, Bosch, Smith are right up there, but at 61 years old, having studied and focused on this stuff for 30 years, and then I just last year I heard that lecture for the first time. It blew my mind how good that content was, and I thought, how have I never heard this from anybody else? I've never been to a church and they preached this foundation. So yeah, I can't wait till we get there. So this week's evolution, and we ended on
And what can I and I would add
oh, go ahead.
that as you have interacted of late more and more on this subject of Sola Scriptura with the Catholics,
Yeah.
that it must really increase the appreciation level for
Oh,
everything that Greg has assembled,
oh
and
yeah.
we are able to go back And because as I listen to the lectures now again for probably the third time,
Mhm.
um, some of them for the second time, just with the exchanges that you've had by proxy, you know, everything that I'm learning from the lectures, um, it sounds so different,
Yeah.
so much more relevant, more impacting,
Yeah.
and with the conversations that we've had. So yeah, I'll be listening to them over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, he was a pointer because this whole
Mhm.
thing oh, we're going to digress, but the whole thing I did about, Gregory the First, Gregory the Seventh, and
Yeah.
seeing this substantive change in the Roman Catholic Church. Um, Greg didn't teach me that, but because he handed, it's funny, handed tradition, handed over, passed down,
Yeah.
because he handed over to me, like Paul to Timothy, this deposit. I used it, and then I started thinking. I was reading church history, and I just thought, I see the change. Like in 1054 AD, any Roman Catholic apologist is going to tell you, and any Eastern Orthodox apologist is going to tell you the Great Schism, right? That's when they both excommunicated each other. Reciprocal excommunication. Ichabod, you're going to hell. So are you. Gone. And
The ultimate Mexican standoff.
yeah.
But you're not Mexican.
Well, I've been listening to some great Mexican music. So they point the guns at each other and say, Ichabod, you're gone. Epithets, both directions.
Yeah.
But that was 1054. And here's Adam just reading about Gregory in 1075 AD and realizing that's the schism. That's when they left the Christian church. And so, yeah, we'll talk about that next week when we get to Sola Scriptura. So, we did Revelation and apologetics, and let's just review. I'll move away as we begin on evolution, but let's by way of review. Do you remember why redemption in the Christian worldview is essential to apologetics compared to other worldviews? Do you remember what that was?
Why read them? Say that again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, why Christianity is redemptive in nature and how redemption is essential to giving or understanding apologetics and apologetic encounters compared to, say, hint, Israel or Islam, which don't really have redemption in their worldview, right? Those are gone.
Hmm.
Redemption was essential because remember, um, the root cause and problem of unbelief is enmity. There's
Mhm.
hostility and hatred for the truth. And so if we just skip over that hostility and throw data, this body was dead and it came out of the grave. Over here is a cause and it needs, here's an effect that needs a cause. And if we just throw data at people, none of it's going to be effective if we don't realize that they have a hostility and they need a rebirth. They need a change of mind, a metanoia, a repentance. So Christianity is a redemptive apologetic. Islam is not. Submit to a law, hope for mercy. Judaism, hey, we've got the sacrificial system, the ceremonial laws. Guess what? We're not doing it anymore. Oh, why? Well, because the temple. What happened? Yeah, it was destroyed in 70 AD. Okay. So your religion's done? Well, no, we converted the sacrificial system into prayers at the Wailing Wall and alms to the poor. Like, okay,
Mhm.
well, how do you obey the holiness code of, Exodus 19 through 21, Deuteronomy 5 through 25, and Leviticus 18 through 21? I mean, you go through all this holiness code and there's lots of blood in there. A lot of animals being killed. There's a lot of, you know,
It almost, Adam, it almost makes me feel like they're failing the coherence test on a different level.
Yeah.
Because the practice that they instituted a practice that no longer coheres with prior revelation.
Yeah, it's kind of autonomy, isn't it? It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
well, we're still Jewish. We just don't follow the law anymore. Well, they follow, let's just say they follow the moral law and all the case law details of it, but where is your sacrificial system that made you what you are? Why did you have a temple? Why was there a Yom Kippur? Right? And so you need redemption in your apologetic, and Christianity has that. Can you imagine somebody talking to a New Testament Christian, right after the resurrection? Hey, man, where's your temple?
Mhm.
There is no temple. I'm the temple. Wait a minute. Where's your priest? There is no priest. Jesus is the priest. You know, the whole thing, the whole economy of Old Testament
Yeah.
redemption was replaced through Christ's death, burial, resurrection, and our faith in it. And that's it. So, the whole takeaway of the last week was that you've got to have revelation, and you got to have not just revelation, but redemption, because you have to take away the hostility, the enmity that's preventing people from believing. And that's not something we do. We just facilitate that apologetically. So, but it's good to know. All right. So we get to go to, let's zoom, Charles Darwin. Um, and the question, 144, had you ever thought about evolution being taught before Charles Darwin?
No. And so when I was reviewing the question, it was really nice to
Yeah.
learn that there really is nothing new under the sun.
Yeah. Ecclesiastes for sure.
Mhm. And
Yes.
I'm sure that the instruction and the concept, you know, uh, of course, was not identical, but the basic building blocks were there.
Yeah. I mean, gradual change from lower to higher life forms, right? So you can see in the text that
And
Anaximander.
even yeah, and even later in our own lifetime or contemporary, we have what's his name? Uh, uh, Shoot, Greg talks about him
Probably
in
Stephen Jay Gould.
yes, Gould and gradual,
Gradualism. Yeah, it's question 145.
yeah, gradualism and punctuated equilibrium.
Yeah. Yeah, that was in the. So
That's
I have a really fun backstory to that about Greg, and I don't remember what lecture it's on, but it's fascinating. But so first of all, number one, I'm talking to somebody. They propose evolution, and it's good to know that way before Charles Darwin ever lived in 1850, and on the HMS Beagle going to the Galapagos Islands, long before that, there were people that had already posited his idea. Um,
before Christ, not just long before, not like
exactly.
100 years before Darwin.
Yeah,
We're talking
550
before
BC.
Jesus.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah. Anaximander, Empedocles, and Lucretius. So
Yeah, yeah.
the question 144 with the answer, the key takeaway there is when those ancient philosophers taught it, it was considered speculation. When
Now it's science.
Darwin taught it, he had a mechanism, natural selection, and that made it appear, it dressed it up in scientific trappings. But really, nothing fundamentally has changed, right? Because, and by
No.
the way, if you want to hear a great Van Til lecture, if you go online with the link at the end of the catechism and you grab his lecture on evolution, pardon me, the reason I love it is because Van Til was younger. And, most of the stuff we were listening to, he's up in age. So,
Is it a MP3 now piece?
yeah, I'll send you the link. I'll drop it in the shared folder. I'll send you a link. But when you listen to him, in fact, it's like, Michael Jordan won three NBA championships in a row with his team. Then he went and played baseball for it. He came back and he won three more. And then he went over to the Charlotte, whatever, the Bobcats, and played with them, and he was old. And so a lot of times we're listening to Michael Jordan uh, when he was at the Charlotte Bobcats. But when you listen to Van Til's lecture on evolution, you you're watching Michael Jordan at his apex because Van
Mhm.
Til is just young and going sharp. And he quotes and gives several references at the end of the lecture and talks about the librarian that he recommended this book to include. She's like, that guy's not a Christian. He goes, yes, of course. So include it. It just, he's so good. And his main takeaway was, no one's seen the backside of the moon. The moon, we never see the backside of the moon.
Yeah, because of the way it rotates and moves, and us, our
Yeah.
orientation with it. Yeah,
Yeah. So his point was
yeah,
that's not observable, right?
yeah.
And so is evolution. I mean, think about the fact that I've always thought about this. By the way, as a child, I struggled with the idea of evolution when I first learned it. I'm talking about
Mm.
in grammar school, junior high, that because I was pretty reflective. And okay, we have a single cell organism and bacteria. How does bacteria grow, reproduce? It reproduces by dividing one cell into two, two into four. Cell division. So think about this. In fact, I invented a proof of God's existence
Nice.
that's related to this. So,
Okay.
and it's related to this transition. So you've got single-celled organisms that just divide through cell division. And then you have mammals that reproduce. You didn't divide your cells to create Riley. I didn't divide my cells to create Esther or Rebecca.
Copulation.
Population, right? Male and female. So think
Right.
about it. Just go back in history mentally and say, okay, at what point in this development did we go from cell division to copulation? What would
Mhm.
that even look like? I've used that so many times with people that are evolutionists because the whole thing is speculation, right? None of it's observed. I go, okay, just make this make sense, make it credible, please. Um, how do we get from cell division to copulation? Compatible sets of genitals. How did that occur? Like, think
Can
about it.
you imagine? Maybe you have testicles but no penis. Uh,
Right?
so how long would it take? Could the organism survive awaiting for the development of a penis?
Think about that. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's just crazy.
it's enough to make an adult snicker. It's like, and you just have to be the kid along the parade route and go, the king is naked and
Yeah.
no one's talking about it. They're all saying he looks great.
Yeah, so I noticed, that they go, and I'm talking about unbelief, right?
Mhm.
People that are non-Christian, uh, they go from one tautology to another. That's really all it is.
Yeah.
They just phrase their unbelief, in all these various forms and shapes, but they
Yes.
keep saying the same thing over and over again.
So true. It's like a jet being chased by a missile and they just throw out chafing rounds. Go hit that decoy. Don't get
Yeah,
in position, right?
yeah, they are the kings of red herrings.
Yes. Yeah, so the proof that I came up with is a branch off of this idea from cell division to copulation. So, okay, let's just entertain the theory. So we have single-celled organisms, they divide and create more, create more, create more. And by the way, evolution, Rev 1, Darwinian 1.0, is mutations based on survival of the fittest. That's the mechanism. Okay. So Anaximander, yeah, we came from lower life forms to become higher life
Yeah.
forms, but there was no mechanism. And Darwin says, yeah, we have a mechanism now. I've been to Galapagos. I've seen the finches, the differences. It's all based on survival of the fittest. So that becomes the mechanism. And
But
then,
it isn't even the fittest, right?
right, yeah. And
It's
and Greg
this,
Greg
yeah.
uses a great analogy, says it's really survival of the survivors. And the
Because
reason
you can't verify
you can't
fitness.
independently test for fitness.
Right.
And he uses the analogy of a wolf with bigger hindquarters, so it's stronger and gets the kill faster, but the bigger hindquarters put more stress on the heart, so maybe you die sooner. Like, how do you test for fitness?
Yeah.
Um,
When you're billions or millions of years, you know,
you're not even observing it. It's just a
yeah.
speculative projection. You can't observe it. You can't
Yeah.
test. Even if you could test for it, how do you know that, it's correlation and causation? I mean, I hear a rooster crow and I see the sun come up and I go, ah, the rooster makes the sun rise. No, they just happen at the same time. There's not one causing the other. That's David Hume. Like, you didn't observe the cause to the effect. You added that with your mind. Anyways, so Darwin adds the mechanism, and today the eggheads in the university, they really don't even hold to gradualism. So then Darwin Rev 2.0 was differential reproduction. In other words, the species that are most fecund, fecund, the ones that produce the most progeny, right? They're fertile. That's the mechanism.
They're the more prolific.
Ability. Yeah, and is there anything more prolific in terms of reproduction than bacteria? Right, it's easy, right?
Right.
So then the question becomes, okay, well, I don't know, I forget what the gestation period of an elephant is, like a year and a half to have a baby. You know, why evolve beyond bacteria? If differential reproduction is the mechanism, why evolve to where it takes you a year and a half to even reproduce when bacteria can do it in minutes, right?
And what of multiple reproduction in one pregnancy, one gestation?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so, I think it's a fool's errand sometimes to go down these paths with people. And what I love about Van Til, uh, in by making us confront the reality that you can't even have a conversation without the presupposition that God, is about anything.
Yeah,
And it almost like cuts them off at the pass
it really does. Yeah. Evolution, you can grant the borrowed capital and play along with them.
and play along, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it because in many of Greg's lectures, he does that. He says, well, let's just suppose we have a problem with that, but let's just play along that's, not a problem.
It's our Proverbs 26, 4 and 5, the internal critique. So now we get to Adam's proof, which I've never read in any book. I invented this. I've never heard William Lane Craig or Alvin Plantinga or anybody talk about it. And that is the libido proof of God's existence.
Yes.
So we got these single cell organisms, and we'll just allow, for sake of argument, that somehow we got mammals with compatible sets of genitals
Genital.
that developed independently. By the way, one of the critics of Darwin early, when the Origin was released, he said, "Did you evolve from apes on your mom or your dad's side?"
Wow.
And that was actually directed at Aldous Huxley, Darwin's bulldog, and he had an equally funny comeback. But so you've got these
Hmm.
compatible sets of genitals. Where does the desire for the male to copulate with the female? Like,
in all the ways that we know
Why
it
would you even?
happens across different species. Sometimes it's scent.
Yeah,
Sometimes, what about all these crazy dances that some of these birds do?
isn't that wild?
I mean, just
Where's it come from?
no. See, this is the problem why I don't even want to talk to people about these things because who has the time? I don't have the time and energy to sit here and go through all these things because it's overwhelming.
Yeah. So I started to think about libido, sex drive, male wanting female.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? How did that arise by random chance? You know, let alone we admit this massive credulous gap in the taxonomic development that from single cell to multi-cell mammals that copulate. But why would they even, what's the fertility window of a female?
It's a week.
Like over billions and billions of years, you're looking at
No. Yeah.
possibility, right?
It's almost like you have to put a spreadsheet together showing all these things that we're talking about, and then just hand it to the skeptic and just
Yeah.
give them information overload, you know,
Yeah.
and feed them out of a fire hydrant on this and see what happens. But because we're here we are in this weed, right? We're talking about this evolutionary Darwinian weed that we're parked here, we're
Right.
talking about it, we're doing what we're doing with
So
that.
much background baggage that's all assumed, unproven, and you have
Yeah.
a conversation.
But then there's this whole other not set, but there's just whole other reality of more uh, overwhelming, unexplained
Mhm.
uh, uh, reality that just screams like uh, God is like screaming
Yeah.
at them, and it's like they still don't have their ears haven't evolved,
Yeah.
So it's just and that's the sin quotient.
100%. I don't have enough faith to be an evolutionist. So, 145. Now, why does evolution not qualify as a scientific theory? So, well, we kind of talked about it with the backside of the moon, right? And this is Van Til's lecture. He says all the phenomena of speciation, one species becoming another, happened outside of human observation. It's like no one observed it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's all hypothetical.
yeah, it's just speculative. Okay.
But we're the ones that have faith and not them.
Yeah, exactly. So the italicized portion in the answer to question 145, why does evolution not qualify as a scientific theory? Um, Greg pointed this out, and it comes from Stephen Jay Gould,
Yeah.
who was the Harvard paleontologist in the 20th century, world renowned, and I was, writing in a journal on paleobiology. From page 145 in 1977, he writes this, and I've used this quote a dozen times in social media. He says, the general preference that so many of us hold for gradualism, so that's Darwin 1.0, survival of the fittest, is a metaphysical stance. So, meaning it's just a view of the world, metaphysical,
Yep.
embedded in the history of Western cultures. Well, yeah, it's been embedded because of naturalist influence. It's not a high order empirical observation induced from the objective study of nature. So Proverbs 26, 4 and 5, we answer the fool according to his folly. We don't answer unless he be wiser than the conceit. Um, this is an example of, okay, let's go to Bertrand Russell. Let's go to Stephen Jay Gould. Let's go to whoever the top guys are. And let's just read what they write and look for the contradiction. So in the checklist, we have arbitrary, you assert things without reasons. And then we have inconsistency, where you say something that contradicts something else you believe. And so this is an example.
Mhm.
Here's a person who is a top tier paleontologist, writes in journals, and yet he says something that he doesn't believe in other areas. And what's fascinating about this quote and what Greg says, I think I put it down there, yeah, in the very last paragraph. This amounts to reasoning by embarrassment. The evidence for my position is there can be no evidence.
Hmm.
Like I'm gonna, okay, what's the embarrassment? I can't find any transitional species in the fossil record. Where are all these transitional species? We should have tons of them, and we can't find them.
And the other interesting thing to me is that, and I learned this from Greg, is that you know, while he exposes the inadequacy of gradualism,
Mhm.
he goes and he postulates another irrationality,
Right. Like that's not
punc-
science.
punctuated equilibrium.
It's not science. That's that's
So
a
it's like,
theory.
how can Gould see the one error, and
Yeah.
he doesn't see that he takes us, it's like he's wearing a sock. I've said this before. He's wearing a sock that has a hole in it. And he says, "Oh, look, my sock has a hole in it. Let me take it off and put this other sock that has two holes in it."
Yeah. I mean, it's I think Greg uses the analogy of um the guy going through the airport with a suitcase and some of his clothes are hanging out and they pointed out, "Hey, you've got to repack your bag because there's stuff spilling out."
Yeah, I remember that.
And he takes out his scissors and he just cuts around the rim.
He just cuts around.
He goes, "Nope." Yeah, I
He's cutting the crotch
think
off his pants.
yeah, I think it was he was talking about Hegel at the time because Hegel was famous for saying, "Air professor, his student says the facts don't agree with your theory," and Hegel said, "Well, then the facts be damned."
Yeah, and what's that other one where the guy, what's his name? The guy that used to cut his guests if they were too long and they were too
Procrustes,
short. Huh?
Procrustes, the ancient.
Yeah, Procrustes.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone fits the Procrustean bed because if you're too short, I put you on the rack and stretch you. And if you're too long, I lop off your limbs. Everybody
Right.
fits my bed. Everyone gets a great night's sleep in my bed, right?
It's my happening and it freaks me out.
So that study and that quote from the Journal of Paleobiology, I use this over and over and over again. So here's the fun backstory. There was a development in the public school to consider teaching um, alternative theories to evolution. I think it was in Louisiana about what's called abrupt appearance. So think about punctuated equilibria. Comes there's no transitions. That's because we just have this punctuation, a new species. And in similar vein, abrupt appearance of organic life. Should we consider creationism alongside evolution in the public school? And so they seek expert witnesses. And Dr. Greg L. Bonson, testifies in a court in Los Angeles as an expert
Oh, yes.
on abrupt appearance. And his
No, he was actually in a deposition, wasn't he?
that's yeah, that
He
he's
was in a deposition. Yeah.
with an attorney, with a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a court
And the
reporter.
guy says, "I've never heard anything like this."
Yeah, stop, tells the stenographer, please stop.
Yeah.
I'll ask a question. Um, the person on the other side of the testimony, who was the expert, was Stephen Jay Gould.
Mm.
It was Gould versus Bonson. And yeah, the attorney says, hey, can we just stop uh, recording? I want to ask Greg something. And this was like 3 hours of Greg just pulling out howitzers and just shelling. He said, this is not a scientific theory. This is religion. And he says, I've never heard anything like this before, the attorney says. This is, I don't know what to say. My mind is blown. And I think that is um, an anecdotal example of the same thing what you can do is just by asking the question. You become Socrates, the gadfly of Athens. You go, wow, you sound smart. I've always wanted to interview smart people. You seem to know how everything came together. This is great. I don't. And then you ask the questions, and they're in a pretzel within 2 minutes. Because how'd you get from single-celled organisms to boy and girl doing the birds and bees, right? How did that happen? Explain it to me. they've it's shell shock. They've never had to deal with this, right? Or they just repeat something that was so obvious. It's an obfuscation of grandiloquence. You read some of these explanations. I'm like, okay, what did you just say? I'm looking for break this down, man. Make it simple for me. So I found that anecdote was amazing that he actually testified in that.
Yeah, I remember that very clearly. Absolutely. Because I've
Uh,
heard that lecture probably 5 or 6 times.
yeah, I use 146, and you'll see this. You can go on TikTok or Instagram, whatever. When you'll see people talking, there will be Christian apologists who will use this. I call it the antithetical causes. So anti against thetical place. So things are opposite, and an antithetical cause is, you can see it says number one, nothing creates something.
Yeah, the question in just the question itself is very self-explanatory uh, for me
Hmm.
because in the lectures, Greg really got for whatever reason the way he phrased it just really drilled it into my mind. From non-life you get life. From non-matter
Which
you get
which
matter.
which is
Yeah,
another version of something coming from nothing, right?
something, and that's why, yes,
An
why I shared
opposite
that
produces
GK.
its opposite.
Yeah, that's why I shared that GK quote with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know, these faith commitments,
But I never saw them that way before. See,
Mm.
and until now, not I'm realizing how religious the unbeliever really is.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I've always ceded that territory to them. And that's what
Yeah.
bothers me about Lane Craig.
Yeah. He does that. I know.
He cedes too much territory.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
what I notice about Van Til is that he is like Christ. He demands 100% allegiance
Amen.
up front. He's like, bring them, we're going to hack their heads off.
Yeah. That's why he says it's head-on collision.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, scientific, the unbeliever comes and presents himself as being scientific and very far detached from the religious faith-based way of thinking philosophically. No, we're very nuts and bolts. We observe, we test, but no, it's actually 100% opposite of that. That's, to me, very mind blowing. Whether you're talking microbiology or I don't care what it is,
Yeah.
they're not scientific. They are more religious than we are.
100%.
I couldn't
Yeah.
believe how I never thought I'd hear myself say it, but they are actually more religious than any believer in any church on any given Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. If we mean by religion, unjustified faith commitments,
Well, that's because that's what they mean by it, right?
yeah, right. I mean,
We
relate,
believe in fairy tales according to them.
yeah, Sky Daddy and all that. Yeah, so I think it was you who said, "Well, pick your miracle."
Right.
Like we believe Jesus rose from the dead, yes, because our worldview has. a divine, sovereign, holy God who controls all and can violate the laws of nature that he imposes upon nature. And so I can make sense of things that don't conform to induction because God can, impose his will. But you don't have that. And by the way, I believe Jesus rose from the dead. You believe everything came from the dead. Who's got more faith? You know,
Yeah.
it's
Somebody once told me, and I forget who it was. He's like, he rigged it. God's got it all rigged.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You're not good.
yeah. Sometimes you just need the simpleton to net it out for you.
Yes, yes. He's got it all rigged, man.
Um,
I think we were walking along, I think we were in Newport, no, Huntington Beach, and there was some kind of crowd, there was a there was like a evangelistic thing going on, at the pier, and there was a lot of people there, and among them was a couple of people that looked like they'd been smoking out, and we were talking to them, and he's like, "Yeah, man," he's talking about God. He says, "Yeah, he's got it all rigged." I thought it was hilarious.
entertaining angels unaware.
Yes, absolutely.
Another thing that I use up at the top of the page, philosophically, I say evolution is superstition
Mm,
into the medieval concept of alchemy, which
right.
which attempted,
Turning base metals into gold.
yeah, yeah. So, how do you, those antithetical causes, something from nothing, life from non-life, blah blah blah. How do you get brass to become gold? I mean,
Mm,
no one here thinks that medieval alchemy is legitimate anymore. And it's on the previous page, but we brought up Louis Pasteur, his work in microbiology, credited for the discovery of penicillin and all that. And there was a time when people thought that maggots just spontaneously generated onto rotting meat. Today, that's a sign of ignorance, right? Um, that life spontaneously generates. One really good apologetic voice out there, Dr. James Tour, Tour.
oh yeah, yeah. He's a
He's amazing.
what
He's a,
is he a biologist or is he a chemist?
he's a synthetic chemist.
He's a chemist.
Does
Yeah,
a lot of does stuff with like graphene. He's
yeah,
brilliant. He's just brilliant. Yeah.
yeah.
Some of his talks are so good. He goes, "Are there any synthetic chemists in the audience?" And he looks, "Oh, okay, you right there. Okay, if I say anything that isn't true, I want you to stand up and yell, 'Liar!'"
Yeah.
Yes, he's
Yeah, no, he's an interesting guy. Is he evidentialist?
oh, most certainly. Yeah, he's
He
never.
has to be because
Yeah, he's a
he's
Baptist.
brilliant.
Oh yeah, he's
You
phenomenal.
know what? Some of these guys, like Kent Hovind,
Yeah. Oh
you,
yeah.
they have so much data,
Yeah.
so much good evidence
Yeah.
that they're like, this is my biggest gun.
Yeah. They have all the weapons. The one thing they don't do is ever take the weapon away.
They don't take the weapon away from the opponent.
Yeah, they just let them have
They
it,
just keep beating them with their bigger weapon.
which works. So
Yeah, which does work.
yeah, no, it's true. All right.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so now that was evolution. Now we get into evil, which is pretty important because
We got to move fast. I'm sorry, Adam. I'm running out
okay,
of time.
yep. All right, how many minutes do you have?
Probably about 15.
Okay, we're good. We'll be done. So, a presuppositional response to the problem of evil. So,
Oh, I love this one. Yeah.
yeah, I was in exchange with a lady philosopher on TikTok. Her name's Bree. Real pretty lady, former Mormon, you know, philosophy of religion type.
Hmm.
And I remember commenting when she brought up the problem of evil, premise one, God is all good. Premise two, God is all powerful. Premise three, evil exists. Therefore, um,
Something wrong.
yeah, God can't be good.
Yeah.
He's all powerful. He'll eliminate evil. If he's all
Yeah.
good, he'll want to do it. And I remember replying to her, that's because we have a fourth premise. God has a morally sufficient reason for the evil he ordains. And her response to the comment was, whoa.
It blew her mind.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, but really,
how do you
you
not
know,
consider that? Like you have a little child. And in fact, Greg uses the analogy because David Bonson, who's still alive, Greg was his dad. David had a facial injury and he needed stitches in his face. And Greg says, so here I take my son, whom I love, to a doctor, and I pay the doctor to jam needles in his face to stitch him up. And he was so young, he didn't know.
that's a morally sufficient reason for all that pain.
He loved him, but he couldn't explain the
Well, he
pain.
had to heal him. He had to hurt him.
Exactly. Right.
And
So
so,
we all know that on a human level.
yeah, and I think with this lady, you
Mhm.
know, when you first hear that, right? Because I've actually said that to people too, that God does have a sufficiently, he has a sufficient reason that is consistent with his perfectly righteous character for the
Yep.
evil. And you have to think of Joseph and his
Yes.
brother.
Yeah. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Genesis 50.
Yes. So God has morally sufficient reasons to bring about good.
Yeah. Exactly.
At in the employment of bad things happening.
Yeah. And by the way, since we talked about evolution earlier, which means there's no reason for anything, and then our atheist and skeptical friends bring up evil as an attack against our worldview, we just take them back to their metaphysics and go, wait a minute, make sense of evil. And then we pull up Hitler and we go, why was it wrong to?
Or any tyrant, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Marquis de Sade enjoyed torturing women, and
Vlad the Impaler.
yeah, exactly. They derived pleasure from it. Who are you to say that he shouldn't do that? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
when you think of Nuremberg, I mean, on what basis did the Nuremberg trials? What
yeah,
was the justification for it? For you
yeah. They
know,
said they were following orders. That's not. That's
but
something.
but 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 when the tribunal was asked, like, on what grounds do you try these men?
Mm, right. By what standard?
By what standard? Yeah.
Okay,
The
one.
spirit of the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say, what is the spirit of the world? Because there seems to,
Yeah, eat or be eaten. That's the spirit of the world.
yeah, there seem to be spirits, multiple. Doesn't seem to be one authority to me.
Yeah, kill or be killed.
Yeah. So then we ask, how does doubting God because of evil repeat the problem?
Hmm.
When unbelievers refuse to presuppose that there is a morally sufficient reason, they commit the same error as Eve. So then this is Van Til. Eve is presented a choice in how to respond to the temptation. She could have righteously presupposed that God was telling the truth and rebuked the devil for contradicting him. Hey, Mr. Snake, you better repent because you're in for it. But rather than do that, she took an evidential approach.
And instantly elevated herself as a judge.
Yes, and we saw that earlier when we were studying dialectical tensions, and Van Til talked about that. How could Satan know what only God can know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she believed the lie, elevated herself, and said, hey, man, let's test it. So Eve took an evidential approach and treated both Satan and God's claims as hypothetical, needing to be tested. By doing so, she put God to the test, and the fall was the result. Ironically, unbelievers attack Christianity over the problem of evil while committing the same intellectual sin that produced the problem of evil. I believe it's Augustine who says the demand for an explanation of evil is evil.
Wow.
Okay. In other
I
words,
would believe that came from Augustine.
yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we believe because, just like last week,
Instead of how uh, a modern teacher or a modern would answer when somebody says, give me a rationale, an explanation, a justification for evil, we, like blithering idiots, will say, "Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked."
Right.
But Augustine, I love it. He speaks in biblical language.
Same
He-
as Van Til. Van Til would say, um, to be open-minded is of the devil. You're not allowed to have an open mind, you know.
yeah,
Now, because we're
because yeah, it. Oh my gosh, it's such a to me it's such an obvious.
think God's thoughts after him,
It yeah, it's
according to
such
his
an
image.
right. It's such an obvious infraction
Yeah,
to God.
yeah,
If God really is who he says he is, how can you talk that way?
yeah. The free will
Yeah.
response to the problem of evil. So this one, so you'll talk to an evangelical, and the typical response to why there's evil in the world. You'll find Frank Turek, Cliff Knechtle, thousands upon thousands of
Yeah.
evangelicals will tell you the
Free
reason
will.
is because of free will, because God
Yeah.
he didn't want to make puppets who obeyed him by divine ordination. He wanted people to freely choose, and so therefore that was the risk we had to take, and what happened was evil. And then, a good atheist is going to say, well, when you're in heaven, you have free will, but you can't sin. Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, then why not start that way? Right?
But think of it this way, right? So I was thinking of it this way. I'm not proposing, but I'm just saying that okay, this whole idea of free will. Um, it paints God like he was playing dice. Like, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah,
give them free will
he's
and
not
see what
sovereign.
happens.
Yeah, yeah, he's not sovereign. He's that's it's a form of deism. God doesn't control things. He's removed. He
Yeah.
got it started, but he can't change.
It's like he's
Yeah,
curious.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah,
And you were reading Brothers Karamazov, and I talk about that in here,
yeah.
uh, the Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor, because of the exchange about like I'm not just gonna not take evil seriously. I'm gonna really, as we say in modern language or in corporate culture, I'm gonna lean into this. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
really talk about evil. And the account in Brothers Karamazov where Ivan is ripping his Roman Catholic brother Alyosha apart because Ivan the skeptic, the humanist, is collecting accounts of tragedy and human suffering. And he brings up the one about the little girl.
The little girl in the outhouse.
Yeah. And, the parents
Oh
put
my
her in the
gosh.
house. And by the way, I mean, you can just go on TikTok. I mean, unspeakably horrible, evil things occur today to the vulnerable and, unprotected. And you just,
Well, just think of abortion, late term of abortions.
oh, yeah. Yeah. The way they do it.
I mean, there's nothing more disgusting than that. That's like
Yeah.
that I saw speaking of TikTok, I saw on a TikTok that how they and I should have shared it, but how they were making a one-to-one equivalence or correspondence with the ancient sacrifices, infant
Symbolic.
sacrifices to Moloch, and how it is, they sacrificed those kids because
Yeah.
they wanted a better life. They wanted better crops. They
Very,
wanted more fertility, more health. What
yeah.
you fill in the blank. And what are the excuses that are offered today right before you slaughter your unborn child?
Yeah, exactly.
You want a better life,
It'll be
right?
inconvenient. It'll be inconvenient to care for them.
But you want a better life. My life will be better without them.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
will have more a healthier life. I'll be more secure.
Yeah.
I'll be happier. I'll be more fulfilled. When
Yep.
the time is ready, I'll have children. For now, let's.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the reform response is God creates evil, but he's not the author of it. And we take it seriously. We can't explain it because it's not been revealed to us, just like I can't explain how somebody can foreordain a free choice, but the scriptures teach it. So I believe it, and I'm not going to be Eve and put God to the test. I'm going to believe it on his say so and then learn later if it's disclosed to me. Then we got our Latin phrases,
Yep.
those, but that's fine. We have how can God punish a finite sin for eternity? Um, this is really more
Oh,
of
I like this one. Yeah.
you did? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I really like this one. Especially the last, the not where you get into Clint Eastwood, but um, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like you say here in the answer,
Uh-huh.
5 seconds to kill a human being, but yet we either end their life or give them a life sentence.
Yeah.
And yeah, it takes considering who the offended party is, and if God is who He says He is,
Yep.
and we
Infinite.
understand, and we have a good understanding of God, a biblical understanding of God.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world
Yep.
because God is infinite. God is infinite. Man is made in His image.
Yeah. When you sin against your peer, there's 1 degree of offense. When you sin against your mom, who took care of you and raised you and provided for you, that
Yeah.
is aggravated. So that makes it even worse. And then when you sin against a policeman who's out trying to protect people and you sin against him, that makes it even worse. When you sin against the president who's got the highest dignity in the nation, that's even worse. And those penalties are more severe. Well, what happens when you sin against the infinite, holy, sovereign God, who, as Daniel writes in Daniel 5:23, he owns all your ways and holds your life breath in his hand.
And if He is the ultimate sovereign God, and He has decreed something, well, you're screwed.
Yeah,
It's like the guy at the pier in
it's
Huntington
all
Beach.
rigged.
He's got it all rigged. Who's
Yep,
gonna tell? Who's gonna
yep,
tell him no?
yeah.
You're overstepping your bounds.
Good luck with that one, Esau. Okay, the difference between atheist and agnostic is pretty simple. These
Okay, this one I wasn't too impressed with, to be honest with you.
Well, I used the definitions from Dr. Michael Martin, who backed out of the debate with Greg. I think
Yeah,
he was a
I
tough.
remember that. Yep, I remember that. But he still gave the lecture.
Yeah, he still did. Yeah, he still
Yeah,
traveled to Nashville.
he's like, hey, he wussed out. You're still entitled to some good
Do you
perspective.
remember? Do you remember the excuse that Martin gave for not debating?
I think he was on his period, wasn't
No, he said it violated his philosophical sensibilities because he learned after agreeing to the debate that the debate would be recorded, and Greg has everybody he debates sign a waiver. And so he said it violated his philosophical sensibilities. To which Greg said, by the way, Michael Martin was a former Roman Catholic turned atheist, Boston philosopher. And Greg's like, well, why don't you just show up and give me a pounding? And then you can use the tape to advance your cause. And
he?
you
Yeah.
wouldn't do it. You know what happened? He heard some previous debates. He goes, yeah, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready for this dude.
I don't want this hit on my academic.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
no, not worth the risk.
But yeah.
So weak and strong. So agnostics have a weak, as I say here, um, the former is a strong denial claiming God does exist, while the latter is a weak denial claiming God's existence is unproven. So the key takeaway from this text is that you'll have people who defend atheism, and then it's kind of like Greg's debate with George Smith. His whole shtick was the case against God. That's the book. And by the way, that book is what Dr. Stein references and quotes from when he's debating Greg at UC Irvine in the 80s. He's quoting George Smith, who's, by the way, a former evangelical. And
Right.
when
Yeah.
Greg debates Smith, on air, one of the callers called in and goes, "Hey man, you wrote a book called The Case Against God. All I hear you talking about is you find all the evidence inadequate. That's not a case against. You're just saying,
Yeah, you haven't made a case. You're just saying, I don't like your, you
yeah,
know,
that's insufficient.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
supposed to have a positive proof where it can't be true."
yeah,
And so this happens a lot. You'll have an equivocation. They'll move. They'll claim atheism and then behave like agnosticism. The last sentence from Dr. Frame: if one is truly an agnostic, shouldn't they go to church at least half the time?
yeah. I remember that too. Yep,
That's a good
absolutely. Yeah.
one. We can skip
Because
this.
he's only halfway there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe it's yes, maybe it's no.
yeah.
Are all non-Christians
This
atheists?
is where I told you I wanted us to begin.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so go ahead. What's
No, just because I when I read it, yes, remember Van Til's definition of apologetics being the vindication of the Christian worldview
right?
against the various forms, the non-Christian worldview. So Jews and Muslims deny Jesus is God. If Jesus is who he claimed to be, in our example, Muslims and Jews are negating an essential attribute of Christ, which is his deity, which makes them atheists, even though they espouse belief in God. So I just thought, you know,
Technical
in a
atheist.
God, right? So I just thought that, most people that I know and have ever met in my life would never consider them atheists.
Yeah, I know.
So I just thought it sounded like an overreach to me
Um,
to call them an atheist.
you have to, well, because
Other gods.
we don't believe in natural theology, right? There's
Right,
only, there's only one God.
right.
And so we're not defending, and you'll hear Greg and Van Til talk about this. They're not defending general. Greg said,
No, yeah,
not
Christian theism.
Christian theism, not just theism,
Christian theism. Right,
right?
right.
Yeah. So
But I feel like that would,
it's
yeah, I don't,
it's inflammatory.
yes, that's what it is.
It is. I
Yeah,
grant.
that's what it is.
Um,
And sometimes we need to inflame.
well, I was just going to say, the follow-on question is being inflammatory always wrong? And I would say no.
Yeah.
The reductio ad absurdum, which is what I specialize in, because of my but I just think that way. I logically will just follow the path of implication and then say absurd. And so this is just an expression of that. It's like
Yeah.
if you don't affirm Christ, the self-attesting Christ, then you're actually an atheist. Okay, that's okay.
153.
Islam and Mormonism. So
Yeah.
um, we believe and have a revelational epistemology. The self-attesting Christ speaks through his word. And then these Johnny come latelys come around. So Islam 570 AD, by the 6th century, you've got the Prophet Muhammad, and then 1,000 years later and more, 1,200 years later, our good buddy Joseph Smith
Yeah.
creates the Latter-day Saints. Um, and so how do we just out of hand reject them?
Well, just on the basis of time alone.
That's one. I agree.
On the basis of time alone. And like we were talking, maybe it was yesterday, when it is, for example, on Islam, right? Islam holds the Quran holds that the word of God cannot be corrupted. The coherence test of Moses in Deuteronomy 13, right? Like it says there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so there's there's the fact that God's word cannot be corrupted. And if
Mhm.
God's word cannot be corrupted, and the Bible is the older revelation, and your revelation, which came later, contradicts the Bible, then you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah. There's two ways to refute it from my perspective. And one is what you just rehearsed for us, and that is the coherence test. Um, you depend on the Christian worldview, but yet you attack it and you affirm it, but it denies you. So
Recognize you.
the second one, which is my hobby horse, and that is, sola scriptura. Jude tells us that the faith was delivered
Once for all.
and we're supposed to contend for it, right? Paul tells us that the Theonostos, the God-breathed scriptures, are adequate to equip us for every good work, to be complete and perfect. So, the revelation is here. Hebrews 1 says, in the last, in past time,
Past tense.
various ways, God spoke through the prophets, but in these last days, He's spoken through his son, spoken past completed action. In
Yeah.
fact, when I have Mormons come over, I will usually take them, I'll build them up through the covenant. I go, so we had the Adamic covenant, uh, reward based on obedience to this probationary test. They failed the test, right? There's a prophecy that says the seed of the woman will blah, 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 the enmity will be installed. Then we get the Noahic covenant, it's getting a little brighter. God rest remnant. Then we get to the Abrahamic covenant and we go to Genesis 15. And, you know, back then they had treaties with the vassal and the suzerain. And when these Mesopotamian kings and countries conquered each other, the vassal was the overlord and the suzerain was the overlord and the vassal was the underlord. And the vassal had to pledge homage to the overlord. And what did he do? Yeah, he took a self-maledictory oath and he said, I'm going to be loyal to you. So that's what Abraham's familiar with. And all of a sudden in Genesis 15, what's going on there?
Yeah, yeah, the oath. If I should fail you, may it be done to me as it is to these animals that we're about to slaughter.
Yeah, so Mormonism is a works righteousness.
Back to blood, right?
And here we see that this is not a bilateral treaty. This is a sovereign covenant administered by one party. And the fire pot and the smoke
The
come
unilateral treaty.
unilateral and they pass through the pieces. And Abraham is realizing,
What the heck's going on?
I'm going to be saved because he's going to keep the promise. If I pass through the pieces, I'm doomed because I can't
Yeah,
fix
none of it is. Yeah, none of that is. And this is your part, Abraham.
it. Right.
It's just crazy when you read that carefully, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll take both approaches. Obviously the shortcut is Deuteronomy 13, showing the incoherence. Modern apologists
Mhm.
refer to the Islam dilemma. Islam says the Bible's true, the Bible contradicts Islam, therefore Islam is false. But I do like to develop it in conversation with Mormons, especially. I'll show them the progressive revelation of God. We get finally to Hebrews 1, we get to Jesus, right? We've had prophets. It was very dim with Noah, got a little brighter with Abraham, a little brighter with Moses, really bright with David. Then Jesus comes and it's crazy bright because he does away with the ceremonial system. It's all done. Here he is, tetelestai, it is finished. And then we have 1800 years, and then Joseph Smith shows up and says, hey, I'm here to finish it. It's like, get out of here. Come on. Okay. So that's 153. The last question. Um, did you know about the Quran and the book burning?
Oh yeah.
How can you respond to the Quran having a
Oh
single name? So, yeah,
yeah.
so the 650 AD.
I remember I had a lot of I had a lot of opportunity my
Oh, that's right.
with my Arabic friends.
Yeah.
And I still have my
Oh, what is that? Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I have electronic copies.
well, no, this was dedicated to me by them.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah, it's signed, sealed, delivered. Where is it? Right about there.
By the way, when I read the Quran and then I read Psalm 23,
Yeah,
you know, the Quran is it just pales in comparison.
yeah. Well, it's the book of Satan. So what do you expect?
Um, the key
But
takeaway from this last question is in the last three sentences, because the Quran and the Book of Mormon claim to fix corruptions in the biblical text. So then we ask, okay, what is the textual evidence of the biblical corruptions that the Quran or the Book of Mormon fix? They don't know what they are. There are none. Okay.
yeah,
And so, how could you be the remedy to the problem of the biblical text? But
yeah. It's like you think that there's some kind of a polemic going on,
you can't
and
define problem.
yeah,
All right, well, that was this week's lesson. Next week, man, it's game time. It's Sola Scriptura. I'll be
Yeah,
on.
I'll be listening to those lectures and
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Yeah,
But
it'll be
yeah,
good. It'll be good. All right.
very.
So what are you cooking for dinner?
I've got smash burgers. I
Oh,
got to
nice.
go grill them outside.
All right. Well, my regards to everyone. Enjoy your food.
Sounds good. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Bless you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.